Welcome to This Week in Westerly with your hosts, Ben Barber and Michael Niemeyer. Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Welcome
Ben.
to the show. Welcome to This Week in Westerly, everybody. My name is Ben Barber. That is the always wonderful Michael Niemeyer.
Hello.
How are you doing this week, my friend?
I'm doing great. Obviously, we've got some big news from the governor and from the president this week. But before we hit that, how have you been?
Good. Yeah, things are going well. I was doing the Housing 2030 the 2030 community conversations with Governor McKee. I was doing those Thursday afternoon, and that's when the CDC recommendations came in, and then we were trying to discuss housing, and everybody was flooding in questions about what are the new regulations going to be, and he was like, hold on, DOH is handling it, and so I know that people are impatient, and understandably so. But guidance is starting to come out, and it's going to be more clear on Tuesday. That's all good news. It's all good news for local businesses and communities and schools, which is where we're at today. How have you been?
I've been great. We've just had a normal week here.
That's always good.
I know. Nothing crazy happening. Just having a normal old week. Got a little bit of takeout food in the middle. It's the most exciting thing we've had happen.
I like it. Where? Since where'd you go?
We went to Vitrano's.
I love Vitrano's. I mean, it's a local show. I figured we would shout out whatever local restaurant we were talking about. I love Vitrano's. I haven't had Vitrano's in a while. Now we're going to get that this week. So thank you, Mike. All right, let's introduce our guest for this week. Do you want to do the honors?
Sure. This week we have Dr. Mark Garceau. He's, for the past almost 4 years, been the superintendent of the Westerly Public Schools. For 11 years, he was a middle school teacher. He's been an assistant principal. He's been a principal. He's worked at the Rhode Island Department of Education. This man knows education. Let's bring him in.
All right. Dr. Garceau, welcome to the show.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Nice to see you.
Good. How are you?
Good morning.
Very well, thanks. Now, Vitrano's and Vittorio's are the same folks, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. That's my guilty pleasure is the Sicilian pizza. I have a serious Jones for that at least once a week. Great stuff.
I think that there's a slightly different menu at Vittoria's and Vitrano's. I don't know enough about it, but they are. It's essentially the same pizza, same grinders, same amazing menu with some slight differences in dinners and stuff. But yeah,
the food's outstanding. We have so many great places to eat down here. It's hard to know where to call when you're going to do that takeout night.
Yes. So welcome to the show. Obviously, we know that a lot of things are in flux and have been for an entire 15 months.
Right.
So is there anything that you'd like to start with off the bat? What's new?
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right. Things have been in flux and sometimes uncertain, and have required us to pivot and rethink how we do things since Friday the 13th of last March, right? When cases started to pop up and immediately everything was shut down. And so we obviously we worked through the spring. We spent a great deal of last summer planning what this year would look like and how we would be as fully and safely open as we possibly could, as much as we possibly could. We knew that we might have to shut down from time to time if numbers spiked. So a lot of planning went into how we developed our hybrid plan. We went through a staggered opening into that hybrid plan through September. And from time to time, we would have cases, and it wasn't so much cases, it was the close contacts that those cases would create that would force us to shut down a classroom or a grade level or a building here and there. But for the most part, we've had a very successful year in terms of, again, being as open as we possibly could. We had a plan where we had Wednesdays was always a distance learning day for every student. And that, created some inconvenience, obviously, for parents who wanted their kids in school 5 days per week. But it also had some upside because, frankly, when we were dealing with a lot of close contact tracing, especially during the winter months, a case would pop up, and then anybody who had been in close contact with that case would have to be notified, and those people, those kids or staff members would go to quarantine. It takes a great deal of time and a great deal of phone calls and research and all of that. And so the Wednesdays being full distance learning gave us a little time to catch our breath and do those things. It also allowed us to really deep clean the buildings kind of midweek. So again, we're doing everything we can to keep things safe. And frankly, when Governor Raimondo had announced last summer that nobody would be forced to send their kids back to school, that distance learning would be an option, excuse me, we had about 25% of our families take advantage of that. So those kids were in distance learning every day. The Wednesday, when everybody was in distance learning, was really the only time we were all together. It was the only time when the teacher saw their entire class of 23, 24, 25 in kind of, Brady Bunch style in the tiles. But at least we were all together that day. So it was a different kind of model. It was kind of a weird year, but our teachers have done an outstanding job making it work. We've been incredibly grateful to the support of our families. Our kids have been outstanding. There was never any issues with, having to wear masks in school or any, issues of defiance or any of that. It was everybody just kind of doing the best they could. And it's been a really good year, all things considered. There's been a lot of learning going on, about how to navigate this whole situation. But as we were talking about before we actually, came on live, people in all kinds of industries and all kinds of settings have learned how to adapt. And while some of it's a pain in the neck, some of it opens up opportunities that you never even considered, that you never knew about. The opportunity to be able to work from home and still be productive, or, there's an equity issue that comes with, frankly, every kid on a Wednesday being on the screen. Something as simple as, and this is just a really simple example, but things that we never anticipated. You have a Wednesday class and everybody's in Brady Bunch style. There's no back row anymore. Every kid has equal access to the educator. The educator has equal access to all the kids. The kids, are all on an even playing field. And so simple things like that, we said, geez, I never even thought of that. We want to carry forward. I was having a conversation with the other day with someone that in September, we expect to be back to normal. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be kind of normal plus, I think, because if we don't take these lessons that we've learned about how to leverage technology and how to do things maybe a little differently, that's a lost opportunity. So we want to be back and be better in terms of having an enhanced understanding of how we can, like I said, leverage technology, how we can stay attuned to the social emotional needs of our kids, which has been a really critical concern over the last 15 months. And all of that. So we're really excited about the things that are happening. Things are moving in the right direction, but we're really looking forward to getting back after it full time in September. But again, bringing what we've learned over the last year and a half with us. Obviously, and I just sent out a notice to parents a few minutes ago. We were all very excited to hear the president and Governor McKee talk on Thursday about the lifting of some mandates, and all of that's because things are moving in the right direction. More and more people are getting vaccinated or have had COVID. Businesses are starting to open up again. Our whole scene is starting to open up again. The sun is back out. We're getting our groove back. But I had to send out a notice to families to let them know that this is kind of in flux right now. When the president said that on Thursday, people were surprised, pleasantly surprised. And the governor had to pull back a little bit even on Thursday and Friday because the lifting of the mask mandate in Rhode Island isn't immediate. That takes place on Tuesday of next week is the latest I've heard. That's Tuesday of next week. people need to recognize that that lifting does not apply to the schools yet. So until we hear from the state that we should be lifting that in the schools, we will continue as we have, through this year. And it may be by the end of next week. It may be, they may say, we've come this far, let's just finish up the school year as we have. But our information that we received last night from the state was that the masking continues in the schools. Nothing really changes until you hear otherwise. That said, we are very excited about being able to offer face-to-face, in-person end-of-the-year activities this year, which we were not able to do last year. At this time last year, we were still in lockdown. There was still nobody on the streets. There were still orange barriers keeping us from even getting on the beaches in Narragansett. So we're in a whole different place. We start with traditional end-of-the-year activities. Next Wednesday is the Westerly High School National Honor Society induction ceremony that's going to take place with some restrictions and, 2 people per kid allowed to attend and all that. But we're getting there. We are scheduled to have a traditional graduation on Augury Field where we belong. The date for that, I just want to confirm. I believe it's the 18th. Shoot, I had my calendar open, but I lost it. On a Friday night on the field, again with restrictions, and we might have to reorientate things on the field a little bit to provide for spacing. But we're getting there. We're really getting there, and I think there's a lot to be optimistic about and a lot to be hopeful about for a great summer for the community and for an outstanding 21-22 school year.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that and for all the leadership that you provided over the last year as we've navigated these difficult times. I mention leadership because you have a doctorate in education from Northeastern University.
I do.
And your thesis was Leadership for Instructional Improvement, an examination of how principals share leadership. I was just wondering how the findings of that thesis inform your philosophy of leadership and how that's impacted the way you've handled this past year.
Wow, what a great question. So my studies came out of the fact that when I was a principal, and I'll just say it, I was really good at it. I was good at it. And I've had friends, colleagues who were really good at it. And I didn't understand, frankly, how or why that was. And so through a lot of self-reflection and in consideration of what my thesis might be about as I was a doctoral student at Northeastern, I started to look into theories around distributive leadership. And everybody talks about, no one person can do all of this. And we get that. But a lot of times people will say, so it's very important that you delegate. Okay, but delegating will often mean just assigning somebody a task and expecting them to get it done. Distributive leadership is really is a framework about looking at the leadership that happens between the leader and potentially the led within a context. And it talks about leadership really being stretched over the entire organization as opposed to residing in any one person. So it's frankly the reason that, when people will, say very kind things about my leadership, I always go to, I'm just part of a team here. I may be the, if you picture an old wagon wheel, maybe at the hub, but everything else is happening all around, and it would be impossible to be successful if it were not for the team. So it's about recognizing, people's strengths, giving them opportunities to contribute, staying out of their way when they know what they're doing and being on the right track. And the distributive leadership is, again, about, one way to think about it in studying that leadership is if you had a glass jar filled with pebbles, the distributive leadership might be the sand that's between all those pebbles, holds the whole thing together and makes it happen. So my leadership style tends to be, I think people that work with me are very clear that I'm kid focused 24/7. that I will always ask, when anybody brings me a proposal, either out loud or the first thing I'm thinking in my head is, how does this benefit kids? How does this work to our core mission, which is always about improving opportunities and outcomes for kids? And then help me understand why you're bringing me this idea and how this does that, how this benefits kids. And then from there, I trust my people to run with the ball. And I've got a great team. I've had, frankly, a number of changes in the team over the last 4 years, because it's important, if you're going to stretch the leadership over this group, and it's a small, very, very competent group, that you have the right people on the bus. So I have people that know where I'm coming from, that buy into that philosophy or recognize that this is not the place for them. And I try to share the leadership rather than delegating, recognizing that we need to come together as a team and figure this out. So I've got an excellent team of problem solvers. And, if we go back to March 13th, we were meeting online, Zooming when nobody knew what Zoom was, daily, and problem solving, and they come up with great ideas. And then we say, all right, well, how do we operationalize that? How do we figure it out? So it's an outstanding team that I'm very, very proud to be a part of. But yeah, that was my study. So for, looking at leadership and how it plays out, we looked at the context within which we work. We looked at relationships between principals and their teachers, superintendents and principals, superintendents and teachers, the whole dynamic. And I've always felt that, if you go back to the idea of sharing that leadership, even when I was a principal, part of what made me successful was, I've always thought that if you're a principal of a building, say of an elementary school, and you've got 25 teachers working in 25 classrooms, you've potentially got 25 leaders in your building. 25 leaders if you encourage them and build confidence in them and demonstrate that you trust their heads and their hearts. And if you don't take advantage of that potential, that's a lost opportunity. You've got a lot of people, we have a lot of people here in Westerly that have no interest in coming over and being administrators. They love being in the classroom. They love being with close to the kids, but they can all contribute to the leadership that has to happen, whether it's about messaging, whether it's about curriculum development, whether it's about imparting, who we are as a district. They can all contribute. And frankly, they all do contribute, because it's not a matter of whether or not leadership is distributed. It's more a matter of, is that leadership being used, frankly, for good or evil? The teacher who holds the nasty, negative conversation in the parking lot after school, somebody's following that person's lead. That person is a leader. The teacher who stands up at a faculty meeting and proposes a great idea that's going to benefit kids, that person is a leader. So obviously there's one kind we want more than the other, but leadership is happening. So when you start to recognize how it really plays out in the building context, it's kind of like in the Matrix when you finally see the code, and then you're in a position to kind of do something about it. So that was my work, and that continues to be my work. And I try to be the kind of superintendent that I wanted to work for. Once in a while, I was a principal. I was an assistant superintendent. I worked at the department. I've been a superintendent in a couple of different districts, and I just always tried to, again, give people what I think is the best gift you can give to a teacher or a principal, and that's confidence. That's saying, I trust you to do this. I trust you because you're credible, because you're honest and you tell the truth, and I trust you because you're competent. You know what the hell you're doing, and then, like I said, let them run with the ball. But then from time to time, you have to pull them over to the sideline and say, all right, here's how we're going to run this play. So I'm just blessed to have a great team, and it's an honor to work with them.
That's wonderful. Thank you for walking us through that. I thought this was such an interesting year for the rubber to hit the road on that idea, and I'm glad to hear that it played out well. Thank you for sharing that. Speaking of kind of getting things back to normal, you mentioned before we started the show that vaccination clinics are going to be available for children who are old enough. Could you talk a bit about how parents can take advantage of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So statewide, there's a number of initiatives to, excuse me, as the governor would say, get shots in arms, right? As we are all about helping people get shots in arms. And we have worked closely with Chief Lacey, who's done an outstanding job, and also Amy Grabowski from the EMA, just top flight people to work with, to provide for clinics for staff and students. So all of our staff have had the opportunity to be vaccinated twice and are fully vaccinated. We have some people who have chosen not to go that route, but all of them had the opportunity. We recently, last Tuesday, had a clinic at Westerly High School for students 16 and up, and we had a number of takers there, and it was provided right during the day at the high school, and kids could just register themselves, because in Rhode Island, for medical procedures and that, I guess the age of consent is 16. And then, as you know, the age for the approval of vaccine use continues to come down. So the other day, I think it was Tuesday of this week, not the ADA, but the FDA approved for emergency use vaccines for students 12 and up. So we are currently trying to target that 12 to 15-year-old age group, but we're also welcoming students of any age and adults of any age, 12 and up. And with the support of our local nurses, and again, the chief and Amy, we have a clinic scheduled this Tuesday at Westerly Middle School. And that runs from 4 to 7:30. And parents just need to bring their child in, fill out the consent form. They can pre-register for that clinic using the link that's on the district Facebook page. And it was also included in an email that we sent out. Or they can go to vaccinateri.org, which I see on the screen there, and sign up for that clinic. So in addition to the clinics that are happening in schools, there are a number happening, throughout the community, and people are going to make their own choices. There is some, hesitancy on some people's parts, but we certainly hope that people will, take advantage of the opportunities we're putting out there. We're just trying to make it as easy and convenient as we can for people. And so again, at this point, it's for 12 and up. Anybody from any community can come in and get their shot on Tuesday from 4 to 7:30 at Westerly Middle School.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I hope everyone who's a parent like myself knows that they are welcome to take advantage of that. Thank you for sharing that. You recently gave a tour to some members of the town council on some of the conditions at the schools. Would you be all right sharing some of the findings of that tour, that kind of reiterating what you shared there?
Yeah, absolutely. The reasoning behind it was really twofold. Since I've come to the district, everywhere you go, it seems like you're always in a battle with both perceptions and realities, right? And I'll say this about virtually anything. If people think that our schools are underperforming, if they thought that our schools were underperforming, and the reality is the opposite, that they are very high performing, or that they're performing well, I've got to address that perception. Right. If the reality is that our schools are in fact underperforming, I've got to address that reality. You've got to address the reality and the perception, because people's perception is their reality. The same applies to our buildings. We struggled with the bond referendum, and I think the previous one that happened before I got here, because in large part there's a perception in town that, the schools don't maintain what they already have. They don't take care of their buildings. That's the perception shared by many, not by all at all. It's certainly not the reality. And so what I wanted to do was, because that sentiment will be shared sometimes by town council members who never attended Westerly schools or haven't been in them in a number of years, I wanted them to come in and see what it is we're dealing with. We currently have a cadre of older buildings. We have a couple of newer ones, but old buildings, but old, dry, clean, well-maintained, well-appointed, painted buildings. And I wanted them to see that, because there's a big difference between, thinking that the buildings are shambles and falling apart, and coming in and seeing a building that was built, in the 50s that sparkles. And there are plenty of them. And we've got a couple. I mean, Babcock has never looked better since I've been here. Ward looks amazing. Dunn's Corners, all of them, frankly. So the counselors that joined us saw exactly what I'm talking about now, and frankly, were quite impressed. You can go into Dunn's, which was built in 1967, and the place sparkles and looks like $1 million. The roof needs to be replaced. That's not a matter of not maintaining what you have. That's the matter of a roof only lasts so long. If you're a homeowner, eventually at some point you have to replace your roof. So that's what that bond question most recently was primarily about. So we have to do that. So I'm trying to address the perception that the district doesn't maintain their facilities. We've got an outstanding director in John Pagano, who I brought on 2 years ago. He's got a terrific crew of maintenance people. He's really smart about mapping out projects and bringing in the right contractors and all of that. He's just been, just nails, Johnny Nails, I call him. He's been terrific. So I wanted to do that, but I also wanted to, as we continue with the building subcommittee, to talk about possible reconfigurations and different plans. And two community member submitted plans have kind of risen to the top. I felt that if the town council members came and walked the buildings, then when we're talking about those plans, it's far less abstract for them. They can say, oh yeah, all right, I remember I was in Springbrook and I saw that, or I was in Dunn's and I understand what that means now. It makes it that much easier for them to make sense of the plans as they're being discussed. So that was the goal, and I think the two counselors that joined us found that very, very helpful. We had another counselor join us via Zoom, Mark Tate, who's at the town, who does a terrific job for them, was following around and Zooming the tours. But we want to do those couple of things. We want to turn around that narrative that the buildings aren't being maintained, and we also want to up the counselors' comfort level with the current state of affairs when it comes to our buildings, because in order to be successful in getting a bond passed, in order to support any plan that might rise to the #1 spot, we're going to need the support of both, if not a majority, the totality of the school committee and the town council. In the last couple, there's been some sniping, there's been some back and forth that undermines what we're trying to do, and we just want to eliminate that as much as we can. We want to be as transparent as we can and lay it all out there in a way that people can understand and wrap their heads around. So I think it was successful in that sense. Thursday morning was a great, it was time well spent.
That's great. I think it's a great idea. If you're talking about an issue and all you see are the numbers on paper, it's not going to be as easy to make a decision. Another great thing that's happened with the district is you recently opened a transition academy.
Right.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the transition program is for students on an IEP, an individual education plan. Special education students, or differently abled students is the terminology we use more now, who qualify under the IEP for additional support beyond the high school years, beyond typical graduation. So the district is responsible for those students from the ages of 18 through 22 now, and what we're trying to do is just what it says, transition them into adult life by providing opportunities for them to have experiences in the workplace, to learn life skills, everything from being able to do laundry and manage a checkbook to, anything that's going to support them in their transition from school years to that adult life experience. So that program, and there's an outstanding educator leading that, and Trish Primer is the lead teacher there. That program had been housed at the Tower Street School, Tower Street Community Center. It hasn't been a school for a number of years, but it still maintained that name. When through budget deliberations last year, it was determined that the district had to hand Tower Street over to the town in order to take it off our operating budget, take it off our books, we had to find a new home for that program. So we looked at various sites. I mean, the ideal site, frankly, would be if we had a house where these students and people could work to again build those life skills. But we saw a number of sites, and one that came up was in the lower level of what is the Pace Building, which is actually the former police station. And so the chief again was key in this. Manager Rooney was very helpful. Sharon Ahern was very helpful. We went and toured it, and it hasn't been a police station in a number of years. It hasn't been, frankly, used in a number of years. But we saw a lot of potential in both the location, because if you're trying to set up internships for young adults, it's a great location, right? It's right by McQuaid's and so many other small businesses in downtown, and the park and the library. It's just a terrific location. It's right in the middle of everything. And so we kind of negotiated a very attractive lease with the town and acquired that space in the lower level. Then we had the Martone Group come in, and our architects, and they redesigned it and basically gutted it and rebuilt it. And we had a ribbon cutting last Friday there. It's absolutely beautiful now. It's bright, it's clean, it's got all the facilities that they need, including the washers and dryers, rooms for physical and occupational therapy. It's gorgeous. So we were very, very excited to open that space for those kids. We would have loved to have had it in place and open for September of this school year. But frankly, in COVID, well, in Westerly in general, things don't always move as quickly as they could, right? But then you put COVID on top of it, and it took us longer than we expected. But we were just thrilled to have that ribbon cutting. And again, we had a number of members of the town council there, and school committee members and families. And there's going to be an open house for families scheduled too for a date soon. But it was a really positive day for us. And the young people who are part of that program are going to benefit greatly. The ones that were there were absolutely thrilled with it too. It's just a beautiful space in a great location.
I'm very excited about it. I have a child who's differently abled, and she'll be matriculated into the Westerly public school system sometime soon. And I am just so excited to have a facility like that we can look forward to in the future. So thank you for all of that. I see we're coming up on the time we promised you there. I know you want to get back outside, so I think we'll let you go. But thank you so much for all the leadership you've shown over the past year. Is there anything else you'd like to mention to us before you go?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to meet you. We've had some emails back and forth, and Ben and I had met previously in something similar to this. So again, thanks very much, and it's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much.
Well. All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely.
You too.
Bye.
As a distance learning family here, household, the skill and ingenuity and creativeness that the teachers have deployed over the last year have been wonderful. I mean, immediately, right? Like, so obviously Braden's been in preschool and kindergarten, so it's a little different. But his teachers have just been outstanding, and all of the hard work of the people in the Westerly School Department to keep the kids safe, keep everybody comfortable, and do all of that has been really wonderful. And I know that your family has had some experiences with that as well.
Absolutely, it's been a superhuman effort. I really can't imagine how they pulled it all off so quickly when it all hit last year, and how they've kept it going this whole time. You'd think it must be held together by duct tape at this point, but but they don't make it seem that way.
Something that I thought of when he was talking about the things that will carry forward, right? And every industry, every facet of life will have things that we learned during COVID that will continue on forward, and just better ways to do things. And I think that something that distance learning, and especially those Wednesdays where kids who were in person had a chance to distance learn, I think people go to like snow days as like, oh, there's no reason for snow days anymore, like good for the school district. But I look at it as like, and he was talking about the equity of like there's no kids in the back row when that happens. The fact that a child would now be more comfortable, a shy, social anxiety ridden child would now be more willing to email their teacher their question instead of never asking it, because they're used to it and they've developed that rhythm of being able to use a chat to talk to their teacher and to ask a question, means that I think that learning is going to improve, right? So many disengaged children over the years who were disengaged because of fear or shyness. Like it's the, it's easier sometimes to, when you don't have to verbalize it, when you can just type it, for a lot of people. And I think that little aspect is going to make a huge difference. I know that parents, my friend Shane has been live streaming all of the sports for Westerly Public Schools. I know that a lot of parents are loving the live streams of the sports games, right? Some parents have to, some sports games are in the afternoon and parents can't get out of work to go get there. And now they don't necessarily have to miss their kid's volleyball game, or, grandma and grandpa that never had the opportunity to see their grandson play football because it was hard for them to get out and sit in the stands, have had the opportunity to do that. There's just a lot of hope for the future in the tools that we made to get through today.
Wow. I couldn't agree more. One of the core ideas of the show is trying to contribute to a renaissance here in Westerly, and I just love that idea that we're not just leaving a period of hurt and difficulty. We're taking a lot of treasures with us out of it that are going to make us richer. That's wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Well, we should wrap this up. Thank you so much to Dr. Garceau, and continued success, everyone. I hope that you're excited about the new rules that are coming out, the new guidelines. Rules is a very like the way that you explain something matters. The new guidelines that are coming out, the new health guidelines that are coming out, and restrictions that are being lifted and all of that. I hope that everybody's excited, but I also hope that you are patient. And if businesses, I was just talking to a friend who owns a small business yesterday, and they were concerned that, if they continued to wear masks and continued to leave their thing on the door, are they going to get screamed at? So many people in the service industry have been yelled at. So, be happy, be excited, go get vaccinated, please, but be patient, and especially be patient with the business owners and organizations that you frequent as everyone tries to navigate these waters. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. We don't necessarily have to run towards it and leave everyone else behind.
Treat each other well, treat yourself well, and treat Westerly well.
As a matter of fact, when Dr. Garceau was talking about himself being a principal, he reminded me a lot of our high school principal, who also has gone on to be a wonderful superintendent of schools. And I'm going to end this because, Mike and I are, spoiler alert, we're Charahoe kids. I'm so sorry, Westerly. But treat everybody with dignity and respect, as Mr. Mitchell would say.
As Mr. Mitchell would say.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. I love you, my friend. I will talk to you next week.
Love you too. You take care.
All right. Bye, guys.